Hey, everybody. Welcome to Logliners. Brendan has a new movie with a working title called Deja. He is going to start out by reading us the first few pages, opening scene, and then from there we're going to kind of go through the beats that he has on index cards.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it going.
Interior courthouse day. The face of Margaret O'Keefe, 82, listening helplessly. Her thick eye makeup has run and been wiped. She's a short and stout white woman, grandmotherly and terrified. We hear a woman's voice. Your Honor, if this was the first offense, we would all agree Mrs. O'Keefe made a mistake. If it were the second offense, okay, a slap on the wrist, a fine, something to keep her out of a car. But this is Margaret O'Keefe's third offense, and her most blatant and flagrant abuse with a vehicle. And not to mention, still without a license. Miss Cartwright is lucky to be alive. She's got over $1,000 in damages to her bike, the medical expenses, and we haven't even touched the trauma. Margaret fidgets with the lapel of her corduroy suit jacket. She slowly pulls on her earlobe, a nervous tick. Another voice. Miss Cartwright, can you reiterate for the record what happened on the evening of April 24th? The face of Joe Cartwright, 35, her neck in a thick brace. I was riding my bike up Route 9 on the shoulder. I do it all the time, and there's no sidewalk or anywhere else to ride. I'm on the right side, riding south through Tuckerton, and all of a sudden I just feel bang. The car clips me on my left side, and I just go black. I fall down, and I'm laying there like literally bleeding from my arm. I scrape my arm, my leg, and I start to get my vision back. Then I see the taillights. She stopped. Honestly, I just wish she drove away because then she backed over me. Back to Margaret. She closes her eyes. She pulls her lobes, shaking her head. So she struck you with the vehicle, then reversed and ran over you. With the back and then the front tires, like the whole car. Your Honor, we have signed paperwork here from Mrs. O'Keefe's stepdaughter stating that she's been squatting in their late father's house. They've tried to evict her over and over. The attorney's voice slowly muffles to become inaudible as we push closer and closer to Margaret. She's humming, drowning out the noise of her condemnation. The tune is Wildflowers by Tom Petty, which becomes the real song, as we match cut to Interior Airplane Day. The face of Deja Parks, 28, a black woman in an army uniform. That's how the show starts, the movie starts.
Okay, so Margaret did this thing. She's in a courtroom. She is the... Deja Parks is not in the beginning, though, right?
Yeah. Is there a
It's
relation?
Margaret, Joe, and Judge.
Yep, that's
Okay.
right. Yep. So, I'll give you the log line now. So the idea of this movie, this is kind of a rough, when Deja returns home from active duty in Afghanistan, she joins a housing program that pairs her with Margaret, an eccentric widow. Deja has to learn how to reintegrate with society while navigating the government's new reintegration program that forces her into Margaret's world. Really bad logline, but that's the idea. I wanted to write something. I wanted to write a friendship movie, sort of like Harold and Maude or St. Vincent.
Yeah.
I know there's lots of other ones like that.
I immediately thought of a recent one because of it, Palmer, with
I didn't
Justin
see it.
Timberlake. But
Okay.
That's immediately when you actually told me the log line, I'm like, okay, these movies come every now and then, and I love them. And Palmer was a recent one that kind of like broke a little bit of barriers, where it's like this little boy, I'm a man's man, and this little kid wants to be like a princess. That's not how it goes.
Oh,
so it's
okay,
kind of
okay,
nice
I
that
like
they
that.
turn those St. Vincent on its head a little bit.
Yep.
But yeah, I love that.
There's I think I mentioned this one to you too. The fundamentals of caring.
Yes. You did.
So it's kind of, I want to make something that's sort of that indie uplifting feeling thing that still has it. I guess you call it a character drama. The whole point of the movie is figuring out why people are the way they are, and then how a relationship can change you for the better. So I can, that's the basic pitch, but I did write out all of the story beats for the movie. I think that there's some problems with it right now. What I think is wrong is something that happens to me a lot when I'm writing movies is I feel like I have a lot of story, but nothing happens. Like I think that's
They're
a problem.
not interconnected enough to make it flow.
Or maybe I'm overthinking it. It's funny. So I read Harold and Maude, And I hadn't seen that movie in a long time. I don't remember not really loving it, but I did like the vibe of it. But when I read it again, I was like, wow, the screenplay just kind of cooks. Like, stuff is happening from the moment the movie starts. The kid, like, pretends to commit suicide, and, like, there's just stuff happening. And you're like, whoa, you know, this kid's fucked up. And then I started reading St. Vincent. And I only got maybe 20 to 30 pages into St. Vincent so far. But I felt like this is the type of thing that if we came up with these story beats, we would be like, that's too cliche. No, that's like,
I agree.
You know, but the way that it's written, the characters are so real, and the dialogue is so snappy and funny, and like the situation, it just works. It's really great. I love that movie. So I don't want to overthink the plot stuff because maybe it'll be fine, but I do think going in just before you guys hear that, that's probably the problem, is maybe not enough happens. I don't know.
Well, maybe we can use the settings and then still have just more happen in the setting. That's fine.
And then the last, you know, disclaimer before we go through the story, my intention is to write this as a movie that is affordable to make. And so you'll even, you know, that first scene that we just read, you'll see the idea is to stay on Margaret's face and then to stay on the other character's face. I'm trying to keep the characters limited, you know, or at least the way that it reads on the page, the way it would be directed, to be like, though you might not even need those actors in the building. You know, you have these like voiceover characters of people you don't even see.
Okay.
So I have these all written on cards. That's how I blocked out this movie. So we've done a lot of different ways to block out a movie. I like doing the cards because then you can kind of see them on a big tabletop and reshuffle them.
It's way easier to shuffle, and the Final Cut, the way they have it, is great. I don't know if it would be better if we had a bigger monitor for that one, but it gets real confusing to look at.
Right.
I actually,
the Final Draft one.
Yeah, on the computer, I rather do it on a Google document, but definitely index cards because the shuffling is so much easier. And if you have like a little idea, you can kind of write it on a card and put it to the side and be like, okay, we need to put that in there somewhere at some point, and then you can toss it in, which is way better.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of no beating that. You know, like there's a lot of cool digital solutions, but you can't. I don't think you can beat the like. Just write it down. It's right there.
You need the space.
All right, so we have Margaret is condemned, which you guys heard. And you know the outcome of this, which you'll see like a page later, is she loses her house that she lives in. She lives in this
later. She loses her home.
Maybe 2 pages later. She lives in this like old Victorian home. Specialist Deja Parks arrives home. Where we were about to get to is we meet Vernon. So Deja comes into the airport and she sees all these other soldiers.
So the opening image is really just Margaret being condemned.
Yep.
And then her losing her home is more the setup.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would say.
Okay.
Yep. The setup, honestly, there might just be too much setup. There's a lot of cards of setup, I think.
Classic
us.
That's where movies stem from, is the setup.
Yep.
Movies stem from the setup, and if you don't have a ending with that setup, then you're kind of fucked if you just have a setup. But if you have a setup and an ending, you're set to start start beating it out, but we really miss the middle parts pretty hard.
We do. I think we end up, for me at least, I end up setting things up like toward the middle to the end of the movie that I'm like, just put that on the first page. This is the movie, you know? So we'll see.
Yep.
So she arrives back in the Philly airport. She takes a train to the Absecon train station and she looks for her car, which is not there. We see her go and talk to somebody at the police station. None of this is really dialogue. It's just kind of montagey. It's happening quick.
Deja arrives and is looking for her car.
She's looking for her car. She ends up and she's walking basically everywhere wearing her ruck. So she's carrying like this heavy backpack. It's early September like it is now. It's warm out. She ends up at Vernon's junkyard and she meets Vernon. He's this huge 75-year-old kind of barrel-chested guy in overalls. You know, the junkyard's going to be a setting in this movie, so there's, you know, it's this nice, you know, just picture like piles of junk. If you've been at any of the junkyards around here, they just look cool.
Yeah.
And she's looking for her car. Vernon shows her her car and gives her her key back. She sleeps in her car outside of the VA, the Veterans Affairs Office. as we see Fancy Margaret, losing her house. So in the morning, she goes to the Veterans Affairs office, and basically, Deja at this point just needs a place to live. I don't know how this actually works in the real world, but I want it to be that she doesn't have money yet, or have enough money, or whatever. I'm not really 100% certain.
Yeah, I would figure it's similar to like a halfway house situation where it's like you stay here and we're helping you get on your feet, basically.
Right. And I think she's so proud. Deja is a very independent and proud person, and wouldn't really want to take, she wouldn't mind sleeping in her car over like telling her sergeant that she sees in the airport that she needs a place to stay. She kind of just like, I'm going to do my own thing. So in the Veterans Affairs office, they tell her about this new housing program called Fusion Home, or Fusion Houses, or something like that. And then we get to the Fusion House. So Deja's driving in, and it's picture a like a retirement community with like those single story, like those ranch houses. You remember Jim Uhas lives like that. So and she's driving in, and she sees like older people talking to younger people on the porch. It's just like kind of like an interesting demographic of people in this place.
So she arrives at the Fusion House, and it's a melting pot of people.
Yep. She gets to her house and goes in, she's greeted outside by Allison, who's going to be another kind of side character in this. Allison is her Fusion Home's counselor. Allison brings her in the house, and Deja meets Margaret. Margaret has already brought a ton of stuff into the house, and it's like kind of like you picture they're very small homes. There's a living room when you first walk in, and off to the hall, a small hallway, a small kitchen, and 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. That's every house.
Okay.
And the living room is just filled with Margaret's stuff. It's like, kind of like a hoarder's house. So Allison, basically, she's, this is kind of the freebie we're going to get in the movie with like explaining the plot. Allison is like, I have to read this to you guys. It's mandatory. I know it's weird. She's like, welcome to the Fusion Homes. There's actually that Brie Larson movie where, it's like a summer camp or something, like it's
Short term
12. It's very that, I think, kind of vibe. So Allison reads them the rules, and the main rules are shared space is shared space. So you need to collaborate on shared space, and you can't do clearly what Margaret's doing already, a bunch of stuff. Private space is private space, which means you do not go into your housemate's room. Guests are approved by the Fusion House. Group sessions are once a week, and they're mandatory. And the worst and hardest one is basically breaking any of these rules, you forfeit your spot. She's like, this is a government program, but it's a pilot program. We are being as strict as possible because we need good results to make this happen for the whole country. So, we're not hesitating to kick people out.
Okay.
So, and here we plant, at the end of this month, at the end of every month or something like that, there is a board review to make sure that you are a good fit. So we plant the board review. Deja can't sleep that night. We cut to the morning, and she's still not sleeping, kind of the same shot, and it's like night to day. And she hears something, and she looks out, and Margaret is leaving the house, but she's dressed in this big white hat and like sundress. Picture like
I think I missed that Fancy Margaret gets at her house, but she's in the Fusion Home now.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. There's no in between. It's just Deja walks in and we see Margaret's there.
Oh, okay.
I think that audience is probably like, I get it.
Yeah, of course.
Fancy Margaret is eligible homeless person basically. So Deja sees her leaving the house in this crazy sundress and very big hat. Picture like women's auxiliary kind of like vibe. And she gets in a taxi. So then Deja, we're back at Vernon's junkyard, and Deja walks in, and Vernon's kind of like, "Oh, what do you want, soldier? Why are you here?" Deja asks him for a job. She's like, "I'm just looking for work. You're the only person that I know. You don't know me." But he's kind of like, you have skills. You probably have a good resume. This is menial labor. This is like ripping metal off of plastic and stuff like that. He's like, it's a good thing for the world, but it's not a good job for you. And she's basically like, I want it. And then we see Margaret alone, walking. I'm using a lot of images from our town, so walking through Tuckerton, like down the boardwalk or something like that. And then she goes into a graveyard and she starts etching on the gravestones.
This is still just set up, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly, I feel like we're probably at page 12 to 15. Like I said, it's probably too much setup. And again, like I said, wait, nothing's happening.
So Deja gets a job, and Margaret's at
Margaret walks through town, and we see her etching on a gravestone.
Is etching on a gravestone. I don't think it's too much setup.
Okay. So, basically, the way that I block this out, just to break from the story right now, is like there are probably 5 story threads, and they are just intermixed there. So there's like the white hat thing, there's the job, there's flashbacks, which are going to start now, and then there's constellations, which are also going to start right now. And then, so these are just kind of setting up those threads still. So this is our first flashback here, which is, the reason why Deja can't sleep. So she finally falls asleep and she has a dream, and we introduce Riles. So we see Deja at her, what do you call it when you first join boot camp? Something like that. Yeah. So she meets Riles, who is this kind of like spunky, short soldier who enlisted at the same time as Deja. And Deja has always been sort of reclusive and quiet, but Riles kind of seeks her out, and is basically like, do you want to be battle buddies? Which is like your, what they call it when you have to travel together when you're just a specialist. She wakes up, and it's still nighttime, and she goes out to the living room, and Margaret is looking through a telescope at the stars. This is kind of their first real interaction alone, and it's small, but Margaret's sort of like, hey, you should get some sleep. You're young, you need sleep. Cut to our first group session, and again, every time we see Allison, the counselor, it's an excuse for us to explain what's going on in the movie, because it's like, kind of, you see these counseling sessions in movies. So she says basically the point of these group sessions is to bridge the gap between our housemates. We're going to start with some questions. Where are you from? What's your greatest accomplishment? And what do you want most in this world? So Deja is from Delaware. Margaret is from South Carolina. Margaret's greatest accomplishment was her marriage, and Deja's greatest accomplishment was being in the Army. And what do you want most in this world? Margaret wants to go on a special trip to Niagara Falls, and Deja wants to go back in time. And basically, Allison's like, that's not a good enough, we need to find what that is for you, what you want most in this world, because those are goals that we need to set goals and work toward them in this program. After the group session, we see Deja organizing her things in her room, cleaning up the yard. It starts with her taking all of Margaret's things and stacking them by Margaret's door, basically, because Margaret still has her crap all over the shared space. She does some yard work. Deja's like very kind of OCD. She's military, and she comes back in the house, and Margaret's shit is all over the place again. So they have sort of their first conflict, and it's that shared space is shared space. She's breaking literally rule number 1. This happens, I think, within this little sequence, I think it happens 3 times. Margaret pisses her off 3 times. And it's just enough for Deja to violate rule number 2. Deja goes to her room, I think to talk to her, but Margaret's not there. And Deja goes into her room and starts looking around. So, Deja finds photos of Niagara Falls, a picture of her and her husband, and she finds a prescription. She opens a drawer, and there's like a lot of prescriptions. There's like all these pill bottles. Deja, then back to like the job storyline. We see Deja working and you know, learning how to work, and we learn that Vernon is actually a Vietnam veteran, so he's also a veteran. And this is where we learn Deja's rank and role, what she did in the military.
Okay.
Which, as of right now, I have her as infantry, which, you know, kind of would have put her on the front lines. I haven't fully fleshed that out yet, but on her way home from work, she sees Margaret walking with her white hat. So she parks and starts watching her. She kind of spies on her, and she sees her going into the graveyard. She watches her etching all of these gravestones. At night, again, we have another flashback, and here's where we see the romance start between Deja and Riles. Riles is basically like, you're scared to go, I can tell. And Deja's like, you're not scared to go? You're not scared to go to Afghanistan? She's like, of course I'm scared, but like, people know I'm scared. People know how I feel. Nobody knows how you feel. And they end up kissing at the end of that scene. There's sort of like a little romance budding. Deja wakes up sort of with a tear-streaked face, and she sneaks around the house. She goes in the bathroom. She looks in some drawers and cupboards, and finally, she doesn't find what she's looking for. Finally, she goes into Margaret's room where she's sleeping, and she opens up a pill bottle, and she takes 2 of her pills. And then she gets in the shower, and we hear, you know, these kind of a transition. We hear a voice, and that voice like sort of becomes group session number 2.
You said Margaret's taking pills?
I'm sorry, Deja takes Margaret's pills.
Deja takes Margaret's pills.
Yep.
I'm trying to write I'm writing very poorly.
Yeah, it's all right.
But because I'm trying to listen, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to write these really shittily, and then you can fix
That's
them.
fine, yeah.
So Deja takes Margaret's pills.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know where the setup stops, and like
that's where I'm like trying to figure out like what is the catalyst. I haven't really.
I
guess her putting her shit back in front of the door.
If we wanted to do it, it depends how you want to look at it, but I feel like it could be going to the fusion home is the catalyst.
Yeah,
you know,
I'm thinking it's just still not.
It's like I know, like I said, it's not.
I think Allison. All of this is great. I think Allison being this like. What I think is why not maybe force it a little bit and make that the catalyst where Allison's like, we're gonna pair up you guys randomly, and like she forces them, and this is like a thing that they're trying to do.
Or
make
Vernon
it more.
is like, you need a place to stay in the initial scene, and he kind of forces her into the fusion.
Yeah, well,
that's fine, but I'm saying even if she's in it, why not? Maybe make the catalyst like they're kind of forced together or something. Something needs to happen for them. I'm like, oh, I'm in the movie now.
I think that maybe I can hit that point better, because I think that's the point of fusion home. So the government has come up with this program where 2 people from very different backgrounds are. Well, here, let me read this card.
Forced to live together.
This is group session number 2, and. In group session number 2, Allison is basically like, have you thought more about what you want? Because we do need an achievable goal for your board review. But then the homework for group session 2 is spend 1 hour together and fill out your reports. So this is like, you know, now we have to, maybe this could come earlier, but it's basically like you have to spend some time with Margaret, and and she gives them each a piece of paper that's like they're questions you need to answer about each other. So Deja grabs Allison before she goes, and basically pulls her aside and is like, hey, Margaret's like not respecting the shared space. I don't know what else to do. So she kind of throws her under the bus. Margaret's like, I know exactly what I want you to do with me for our hour together. and we cut to Deja in like a big white hat, and she's at this weird meeting, which is the Society of the White Hats, and it's basically like a women's auxiliary kind of like, you know, historical. I think they have this in our town somewhere. I don't think they're white hats. They're something. I don't know if they still exist, but there was like a
flowered hat or something.
Yeah, there was like the pink
right.
hat ladies or something like that. It was a thing, and it's like kind of at the Tuckerton Emporium, kind of, you know, or at the Seaport. It's like a historical society for the town. And here, Deja's just observing this really weird meeting where they like, you know, say things together, Pledge of Allegiance and stuff like that. But we introduce Denise, who is kind of the leader of the White Hats, and she is like a pusher. She's she like kind of pushes Margaret around or dismisses Margaret. And here we plant that they are planning the parade, the Tuckerton parade, for like the 225th anniversary or something like that of the town. They do the parade every year, but this is a special parade. And we learn that the parade leader is going to be Maddie, but it was supposed to be Margaret's year. Margaret was supposed to be the parade leader this year. And we plant that they are going to do the mummer strut, which they do every year, which is a weird dance that people do in Philly. Margaret opens up to Deja after this meeting. This is basically as Deja's filling out her paperwork. She says she always wanted to go to Niagara Falls, and she was scheduled for her 25th anniversary, and then her husband started getting sick. He ended up, you know, with pretty bad dementia, and she cared for him for 7 years. The conversation kind of carries between walking the town to walking past the graveyard and then into the house, and Margaret's kind of cleaning up her stuff like, you know I'm doing this. And then we have our second constellations. Deja's watching her, and she's like, what are you looking at? And she's like, right now I'm looking at Ursa Minor, the baby bear. Come look. I want this to make sense with the seasons and make sense with the story. I haven't researched yet, but it's basically a constellation that she shows her. And
this is like the first time that her and Margaret kind of getting along.
Yep. And at this point, Deja opens up, and she's like, the stars were, you know, the sky was so much bigger in Afghanistan. And here we learn that Deja has no family. Her mom overdosed, and she was left living with her mom's boyfriend, who got really creepy really fast. So she just got in her car and drove until she had no money. She ended up in Philly, and she went into a recruitment office and enlisted. And that would have been about a year ago. You know, Deja's like, I think I said she's 28. So, you know, that was, you know, she was well into her 20s, but after that, Margaret goes to Deja's work. This is just kind of like a short, maybe comedic scene, but it's Deja's hour. You know, you have to spend an hour with each other for the thing. And Vernon just like comes around the corner of the garage and looks in, and this little old lady's like using the winch to like lift up a refrigerator, and she's like hammering on, and he's like, what the fuck is this? You know, just a little like Deja's teaching her how to do stuff. And Deja fills out her paperwork. So back at the group session number 3, the counselor reiterates, like, Deja, we need to come up with a goal right now. How about like reconnecting with family or something like that? And she tells them their next assignment is the community group session, which everyone in Fusion Home is going to come together. And we're going to do like a small presentation about your buddy, your housemate. This would kind of be fun and games. It's like a little montage, but I called it Falling into Friendship. So basically, like, Margaret's like, well, what are you up to today? And then we see them walking through town together. They see the graveyard again, and Deja's like, do you want to go in there? And she's like, no. And then she goes to the White Hats again, and Deja like starts to learn the mummer's strut. They're like trying to teach her the mummer strut, but she's like, this is so dumb. I'm not doing this. And at the end of that little montage, Deja steals a whole bottle of pills from Margaret. Back to Deja's job, and she pops some pills before work, and she ends up falling asleep. Vernon is basically like, I think this might be where we learn that Vernon is a veteran himself. And Vernon's role here is he understands that she's going through something, but he doesn't care. And I think I want him to be, I'm not sure if his viewpoint is correct. It's just that his viewpoint is, you know, nobody's going to, if you're a veteran and you have PTSD, if you have anything like that, nobody's going to help you. That's how he feels. And between them, he's like, I'm definitely not going to fucking help you. You know, like if you can't come here and do your work, then don't come here and do your work. So he's like, just leave. And if you want to come back tomorrow and do better, that's fine. But, you know, I'm not going to hold your hand through whatever it is you're going through. So she kind of starts to slide. Maybe I should have said this earlier. I want it to come through, but I think she's dealing with some sort of bipolar or depression. You know, she's going to kind of go up and down, Deja. On her way home, she pulls into the graveyard and surprises Margaret there. She's like, I knew you'd be here. And Margaret tells her what she's doing. Margaret's like, I'm making a record for the town of every grave in a 20-mile radius, because like these people shouldn't be forgotten. It's like, look, Nathaniel Greenstone, you know, but born in 1890, I don't know. So she's just etching all of these things. And here's where Deja opens up again, and she's basically like, I lost the only friend that I ever had in Afghanistan. And Margaret's like, do you want to tell me what happened? She's like, well, her name was Riles. Amy Riles. These are conversation scenes. I don't exactly know where or how they take place, but I think it's going to bounce around, you know, like they're just going to be, it's a lot of talking. At the end of this little, like, Deja opening up, Deja says, I want you to do something for me, to Margaret. She's like, I want you to stand up for yourself with Denise. I want you to take your parade back. And Margaret's like, if I do that, then you're going to have to do something for me. She's like, okay, what do you want? She's like, I don't know yet. But, you know, they make this pact to, I'm going to do something for myself, but I'm going to do it for you. So back at the White Hats, Margaret stands up to Denise, and it's kind of a little mini speech. Margaret's going to have a lot of speeches, I think. But it's basically like, I'm the oldest person here. I knew this town when there was no internet. I knew this town when the satellites were standing up, you know, for whatever war. I don't know. And I deserve this, and you can't just take it away from me. So she gets the parade back. And she's so excited. Deja's not there when she does that. She's very excited, and she goes into Deja's room to tell her, and Deja's like dead asleep. And Margaret finds a photo of Deja and Riles, and it has a phone number on the back of it. Cut to the community group session that we planted, and basically, like, we see what's happening is, picture like a VFW hall or something like that, and like the two people will go up together, you know, because there's all these homes in the community, and they'll say like, this is Joe, he's my housemate, Joe has 2 kids, and, you know, so they're just like introducing their housemate to the community. And Margaret and Deja go up. Deja introduces her, it's a little short thing, and then Margaret is basically like, Deja's a veteran, and this is her friend that she lost. This is Riles, and Deja freaks out. She's like, what the fuck? Like, where did you get that, and why would you do that? So Deja storms off, and she goes to Allison and is like, Margaret broke into my room. She did this. She hasn't been doing anything right. and she's been breaking all the rules. Before they leave this little sequence, Margaret comes to her and she's like, I'm really sorry, it was a mistake. I just kind of wanted you to celebrate what you lost and not to hide it, because I want to help you get better. I thought we were becoming friends, and Deja was like, I don't have any friends. So Margaret is kicked out. Deja comes home, and they're like taking Margaret's stuff out, and Deja goes into Margaret's room, and the pills are gone, and Deja's like, fuck, like that was kind of my source for what, you know, I was like using. So Deja goes to the graveyard again and finds her, and Margaret shows Deja her daughter's gravestone. She's like, I've kind of been hiding my truth too. This is the only grave that I haven't etched in this graveyard, and I've done all of them 3 times. I haven't figured out the backstory, but I think her daughter was young. Like, she had a 5-year-old or something that passed away.
Okay.
And she takes Margaret takes Deja to on a little tour, basically, of her history. She shows her the house that they took from her, and they break in. You know, it's a house for sale. She's like, it was in our will from years ago that his daughter would get it, and I didn't think it was right to change the will while he was sick. But as soon as he passed away, they wanted to kick me out, and I didn't, you know, I just didn't have anything. And then we have a third constellation moment, like the sun sets and they go outside, and she's like, look, we're not going to see each other again. The last thing I wanted to show you was Scorpio. That's your sign. And she tells her, Margaret tells Deja what her sign means and shows her the constellation. And Deja's like, fuck this. We're going to do something. She's like, get in my car. Come on, we're going to go. And they start to drive, and there's like Niagara Falls, yeah. So there's this little, you know, do you trust me? And then Deja's like, or Margaret's like, yeah, I trust you. Let's go. So they go to Niagara Falls. It's like a dream, you know, it's like a beautiful memory. They get there in the morning. It's like a 6-hour drive from here, something like that, maybe 7. There's like beautiful moments, you know, I'm thinking just like a montage-y song thing. They go see the falls together. They go on a boat together. It's almost like a mother-daughter thing. And here is where I'm not 100% certain that I like this plot line, and I think it doesn't change much if we take it out, but I did write that Margaret tells her about a diagnosis that she has. It's the reason she has all these pills. And I sort of want it to be like kind of like a cancer. Like, basically, I'm terminal. And they want me to take all this stuff, but I'm not going to do that, because fuck that. I'm not going to live my life, like the last moments of my life, just not knowing what's going on. So it's the reason why she has all those pills, we find out. And here there's a little plant here where Deja's like, is that why you have all those pills? And Margaret's like, how does she know I have all those pills? You know? So they're driving home. In the morning, they have another group. Deja has a group session, and Deja's like, I'm going to tell Allison that I lied. I'm going to bring you back, and I'm going to tell her I lied, and I want you to be my housemate. And while she's driving, Deja starts having a flashback of Riles, and she falls asleep at the wheel, and she almost kills them. And Margaret's like, let me drive. And she's like, no, you're a terrible driver. Or maybe she doesn't know that. I don't know. But the audience knows it. So she lets Margaret drive. She starts driving, and then like immediately Margaret hits a curb and pops the tires. So they miss the group session. By the time they get out, Allison is already like moving everybody, Deja's stuff out. And she's like, you can't disappear with an elderly member of the community. Like, everything you did was wrong. You guys are a liability. I'm sorry, but you're out. And Deja's like, what happens to Margaret? She's like, well, we've made arrangements. You have, you know, basically you have till tomorrow. And Deja's like, fuck it, I don't need till tomorrow. And she leaves. And she goes to Vernon, and Vernon's not taking any shit, and he just fires her. He's like, you didn't show up twice. You don't work here anymore. And he's kind of like, just so you know, you're a cliche. You're a veteran who's haunted by her past. You're living a cliche. I don't feel bad for you. I've been in your shoes. I know what you're going through, and I don't feel bad for you. He's kind of like, you don't even talk to me. You don't want to get on the other side of this. So Deja starts looking for Margaret. She makes a call from the hotel, trying to find, where Fusion House sent Margaret, and they won't tell her. She's not at the White Hats. She's not at the graveyard, and they won't release any information. And she's sort of at her wit's end, and she takes the rest of the bottle of pills that she had taken from. I'm sorry.
So she took.
No, she doesn't. That doesn't happen yet. I'm sorry. She can't sleep. She finishes the last pill that she has, and she falls asleep, and has a final flashback where we see basically what happens is, Deja makes a mistake on a mission, and she is the reason that Riles is in an explosion. So she kind of causes this thing that happened with Riles. When she wakes up, she breaks into the Fusion Home office, and she's looking around for the records, and she finds Margaret's records, and she finds Margaret. Margaret's in like an old people's home. And she goes to the old people's home, and she finds Margaret, and she's like, you don't have anybody here. And Margaret's like, it's not so bad. It is what it is. She's like, basically like, you need to take care of yourself. You're not okay. And Fusion Home was never going to be really a solution for you. I think whatever it is, it's like facing your past and being okay with whatever happened. Even if you don't want to talk to me about it, you should talk to somebody about it. And Deja is like, you really don't know anything about me. When Deja goes to leave, she steals another bottle of pills, like pretty openly. She just like sees it and she grabs it. She's like, nice to know you, Margaret. And that's when she takes the whole bottle of pills. She's on the train to Philly, and she overdoses. She wakes up in a hospital room, and Margaret is there, sitting with her. And Margaret's like, I didn't realize, but I knew, that you were doing this, and I feel like somehow it's kind of my fault. And Deja's like, it's not your fault. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm, trying to take control back of my body and my mind, whatever. I'm making this up, I don't know. And then Margaret breaks her out. It's like a, classic hospital jailbreak scene. She's like, come on, get in this. And she's like, we can't do that. She's like, yes, we can. She's like, you're going to do something for me. You owe me. You're going to do something for me. That's confusing, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. It's your turn to face your past. She doesn't say that, but she pulls up to a house, and she's like, you're going to knock on that door. She's like, what's going on? So she knocks on the door, and Riles answers the door. She has no legs. She's in a wheelchair. And Riles is kind of like, what the fuck are you doing here? I think it's the way that I want it to be is like, it actually was Deja's fault. Whatever happened, it was okay. Like you were not being safe. You were not being smart. And Riles is like, can't forgive her also. They're like, she's like, fuck you forever. You ruined my life. And Deja's like, I just want to apologize because I never got to see you and I never got to say it. And that's just something I need to do. And Riles is like, okay, well, I hope you feel better because I'm fucked. And then, the Margaret and Deja break into the board review. So it's like the evening, the same time, the evening of the board review, they bust in, and Margaret fights for Deja to be able to stay in the program. And she's like, she's been through more in 2 years than you guys have in your whole lifetime, and you're going to make these judgments in 2 weeks of, but like, how is that actually going to help anybody? And then Deja's going to be like, that's right. And this woman is royalty. Did you know that? Like, she's going to say, like, silly things. Like, she is running the parade, the Clam Town parade. There's just things about Margaret that are kind of like silly, but, the board, it's just this weird thing. And the board's all like watching them make this little speech, and cut to, they move back in together. So they're back in their house together. And Deja goes to Vernon, and he hears, basically you don't see it, but you see Vernon, and he hears something, and he comes around the corner in the garage, and she's just working. And she's reorganized. This is something I wanted to plant earlier, but she's reorganized the garage. Vernon's like very messy, and it's a problem for him. So he comes around the corner, and the garage is fully organized and clean and stuff, and he comes to step in, and she's like, don't put your foot in my garage, because I know you got grease on those boots, and you're not walking over my clean floor. And he just kind of like smiles, like, motherfucker. Deja comes home from work, and Margaret's dead. She just dies. This again is like, I'm not sure, that's the plot line I wasn't certain on. Okay. But she finds her dead in her room. And there's a little montage of basically Deja goes to her funeral, but she sees her in Niagara, and we hear the final conversation about constellations. And the point is that every star, even though they're billions of light years away from each other and millions of light years away from us, they make a bigger picture together. And to be friends is to be a part of a bigger picture. So after the funeral, Deja goes and etches her daughter's gravestone and puts it with the whole thing. And Deja's wearing her white hat and ends up at the parade. Deja leads the parade and does the mummer strut. Like laughing, like doing this fucking. If you've seen it, it's so shitty.
I haven't, but I'm.
It's the dumbest. It's the dumbest dance. Deja gets home in her white hat, and Allison is like, "Hey, we want to offer you another 6 months if you want to stay again. It's totally up to you, but whatever you think. But we want to introduce you to your new housemate." And she walks in, and Riles is there in the wheelchair.
Okay.
And it ends on the same song, "You belong among the wildflowers." That was like a long episode. Sorry, guys.
No, that's like great. I do you want to cut it there, or do you want to talk about it more right now?
I do. I want to do both. So that's the blocking so far for Deja's story. I don't have I don't have a title, but that's like how I would see that movie going.
Yeah, I love it. All right, we'll cut that, and then we'll talk about the beats on another episode.